I just happened to stumble across a Review Tech USA video, and I don't look for Review Tech USA. I ignore this fat, degenerate lunatic who clickbaiter who just constantly makes up gaming news in order to drive attention to his YouTube channel. He's always been a fraud, always has been, always will be. But the thing that really caught my attention about this video is that it is a Nintendoom clickbait video, right? Let me see what the title is. Is Nintendo gonna milk the Switch dry? 15 hours ago, 34,000 views. I don't know what the deal is with his view count, but like it feels like his views have, although his subs have gone out, like people don't necessarily click on every single video. It's kind of interesting how he does this. So okay, so how he does his business, but this isn't necessarily about Review Tech USA. This is about like the nature of this video. A Nintendoom video in 2021 is not getting the same amount of traction or attention it would have gotten in 2015. In a lot of ways, we are in a completely different gaming environment right now where it's downright laughable to try and shit on the Nintendo Switch, right? Like, if you seriously try attacking this thing, if you're saying Nintendo is making missteps, or PC gaming is dominating it, or next-gen consoles are going to smash it, like, people just straight up laugh at you because it is blatantly not true. Nintendo is dominating the competition, like both in the quality of the software, its features, its add-on accessories, and the games, right? Like the games on Switch stomp those of other consoles. Like you guys spent like 20 years, literally like 8 to 10 years, right? Like hyping up Cyberpunk 2077, and what did it get you? Jack shit. Like, not even like a mediocre game, right? A downright unplayable, buggy mess. Like, completely unfinished, right? Like, the days of saying that, like, oh, Nintendo only puts out rehashes, they only have Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Nintendo only has, like, kiddie games, Nintendo is underpowered, Nintendo doesn't have quality software, Nintendo games don't sell, third parties don't sell on Nintendo. Those days are over. Like, I don't think anyone outside of the Nintendo sphere really appreciates this enough. But we are past the days where Nintendoom is a real thing, like where it's an actual thing that people believe. Like, nobody is taking criticism of Nintendo all that seriously anymore because people see more and more just how ridiculous it is, right? Like, how ridiculous the complaints against Nintendo actually are, especially when you compare them against the mistakes of PlayStation, right? Like, the PlayStation has been pretty consistently putting out some of the most controversial titles ever made in the past couple of years, and yet nobody really wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about Death Stranding. Nobody wants to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. Nobody wants to talk about like how Crash has no viability as a franchise. Like they just keep making up excuses. Like, oh man, the PS5, it's gonna stop the Switch. Switch sales are gonna peter out eventually. Like, we just have to wait for the big third-party games. What big third-party games? Like, this probably should be the subject of its own video, right? But when you get right down to it, like, we are in the middle of a new console generation where there are no major third-party games on the horizon. Literally nothing. Like, you have nothing to look forward to. Like, you have nothing. We are legit going to have E3 2021 and not have a single new relevant non-Nintendo game be announced. Like, we are seeing the death throes of the non-Nintendo industry. They're desperately trying to keep it afloat. They're desperately pumping more money into these IPs to try and get them to sell on PlayStation and Xbox, but the numbers don't lie. People mostly want games on Nintendo hardware, right? They don't want to buy multiple gaming platforms for a handful of games that really should just be on the Switch. There is no reason for Resident Evil 8 not to be on Switch. There is no reason for what even else is coming out? Like, I don't even fucking know. Like, Final Fantasy 16 to not be on Switch. No reason for Metal Gear not to be ported to Switch. No reason for, like, old PS4 games to come to Switch. Like, there's no reason to continue this farce, this facade, that this idea, this fantasy that other platforms have something that Nintendo doesn't. Like, it's never really been true. Like, essentially, when you talk about CDs, when you talk about the orchestra, when you talk about FMV, you're basically just rehashing marketing points, right? Like, you're repeating what Sony's marketing team told you to try and convince you the PlayStation was a viable platform. and it was never true. Like, the N64 stomped it, the GameCube stomped the PS2, the Wii stomped the PS3, the Wii U stomped the PS4, and now we're seeing the Switch stomp the PS5. Like, probably harder than any Nintendo console ever has before, right? Because this time, there's no real denying it. There's no real making excuses. Like, PlayStation is on the decline, and Nintendo is reaching the point where it's never going to decline again. PlayStation has no more third-party games to steal away. Like, they have nothing. They have no value to offer consumers whatsoever, and in the next couple of years, PlayStation will be nothing but a distant memory, while Nintendo continues to dominate.